before you decide to pull the trigger on marrying that sister who's been married before or has children from a previous marriage, Akhi, please watch this video. Now, I understand these sisters need to get married and all the rest of it. And if you decide after finishing this video all the way through that you still want to marry her, more power to you. Ultimately, we need to find solutions for these sisters. I am just conveying the message, conveying the facts. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Mahdi Tijani. If this is your first time here, please hit the like, hit the subscribe. We talk about all sorts of things that tend to trigger people. Intersexual relationship dynamics for the most part. And I have one single, simple aim. Restoration of the nuclear home. To restore the nuclear home. That is my ultimate objective, inshallah ta'ala. To bring mother and father under one roof and for them to make it work together, if not for themselves, for the sake of their children. So let's get into it. Before you decide to marry a sister who has been married before, or, and this is even more of a burden or a responsibility that is upon your shoulders, a sister who has children from a previous marriage, the first thing you're going to want to concern yourself with is imprint. Has this sister moved on from her ex? Let me tell you a story. I've mentioned this story a few times in the past. This story was narrated to me personally. I know a brother. His wife sought khul from him. She left him for, she had her personal reasons. She wanted to leave him. Yallah, they went their separate ways. This sister then came back to him 6 months down the line and said, please, could you take me back? He refused. Another few months down the line, she said, please, could you take me back? He refused. Another few months down the line again, she asked one more time, please, could you take me back? He refused the third time. He had moved on from the situation and he was happy with how things were. 6 days after she asked him to take her back, she got married. What does that tell you? What do you understand from that? Do you really think, Yani, that she found the husband in that 6-day period from the last time that she asked for him to take him back, and then the following day she found someone and she got married? What's the likelihood of that? Okay, let's say if I cannot prove with any concrete evidence that this didn't happen, but it's safe to assume that this is unlikely, even by Muslim standards. To meet someone online and get married 6 days later is unlikely. What does that tell you? This brother was in the background. He was there at some point in the past. Maybe he was there for a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, who knows? But in her mind, she knew who she always wanted to be with, which was the father of her children. She had children with him. And he no longer wanted her anymore. But women tend to have backup men. And there's a beautiful stat that I posted on my community page a while back of the percentage, the number of women who have a backup man in place just in case their main man fails. Over 40% of women have a backup plan in place, a backup man in place, one in the chamber. This is no different for the Muslim community. And this is pragmatic on the woman's point of view. Frankly, I don't really blame her. This is pragmatism. She can't necessarily put all her eggs in one basket. She needs to resolve her problem, which is find a suitable husband to take care of her and her children. She needs a backup plan. But the main one that she wanted was the one who didn't want to take her back, which tells you what? When she got married again, she still had thoughts of this previous man. She still had thoughts of him. And I know of that woman, she still talks about that previous man to this day, because I've heard other stories later on down the line. To this day, she still brings up his name and talks about him frequently. Imagine now you are the husband who is married to this sister, who 6 days before you married her, she asked her ex to take her back. How would that make you feel? How would that make you feel? You are not her top choice. And you should never, ever marry a woman who doesn't see you as her best choice, because you will constantly be in competition with the ghosts in her memory. You will constantly be in competition with the ghosts of her ex-partner that are in her memory. You will always be second fiddle to that individual. That's the first thing. The second thing is this, on the line of imprinting. If you are going to marry a sister who has been married before, regardless of whether she has children or not, if she has been intimate with a man before, never mind marriage. I say the word marriage because we're Muslims, but never mind the word marriage. If she has been intimate with a man before, you are going to have to ensure that you are bringing more to the table than what her ex did. I'll give you another story. This story was also related to me personally. This brother, he married a sister. This sister has been married a number of times in the past. I can't say for sure how many times she has been married, but I know she was married a number of times in the past. This is what has been relayed to me. This sister, she married this brother, all seemed to be well, alhamdulillah. A few months into their marriage, this couple had been intimate with each other, and I'm relating the story to you as it had been relayed to me. They were intimate with each other, and then at the conclusion of their intimacy, suddenly, the sister, she became enraged. She became so angry. And he was baffled. He was like, what's going on? And she said to him, my body is used to being fucked for hours. And I'm sorry I had to use that word with you, but I wanted you to feel the feeling that that brother undoubtedly would have felt. Feel it. My body is used to being fucked for hours. You are not doing it for me. Fulan, average Abdullah, whoever, it doesn't mind who he was. It doesn't matter. The point is, she had a point of reference in her mind of what her body was used to. And whether she was exaggerating or not is irrelevant. The point is this. She felt that this brother was not at least meeting her at the level she was accustomed to. Which brings me back to a point that Sister Naima B. Roberts mentioned in one of her podcasts in the past, which was a woman, once she gets with a man, she cannot go backwards. If she leaves him or he leaves her, or whatever the case may be, and then she goes to get married again, she can't go backwards in her mind. She either has to meet someone who is at the same level as her ex, or preferably better. Preferably better. So if you're getting with a sister who is used to a certain type of man, and you're not meeting her at that level, you're not effing her for hours, whatever she may used to be, that point of reference is going to haunt her. It will haunt her ability to connect with you. And this is why when I had that podcast with Muhammad Hijab the other day, Brother Muhammad Hijab, Jazakallah khair, it was an excellent podcast. I said to him, Akhi Muhammad, how many of these brothers are you talking to? I talk to these brothers every single day. This is what's going on the ground. This is what's going on the ground. And a woman, she can't go backwards when she's gone forwards. And frankly, I don't blame the sister. There's no fault on her. She's used to experiencing intimacy in a particular way. For her, anything less than that is a loss. Regardless of whether it's good on the grand scheme of things or not, it's a loss. She's going backwards. And that's what you as a man have to contend with, have to bear in mind if you are going to get into a relationship with one of these sisters, if you are going to take on one of these sisters. So remember that. You must bring at least as much, if not more, to the table than her ex. And I'm not just talking about money, I'm talking about everything. Your intelligence, your sexual prowess, your finances, the full Monty. At least as much, preferably more. That's the first point. Second point, and this is where it gets really complicated and sticky, is children. And again, I'm going to read off my notes here so I don't forget. If you decide to marry a sister who has children from a previous marriage, there are a number of hurdles you are going to have to bear in mind. The first is to do with her children concerns authority. You might have heard the term before in this space. You will have all of the responsibility and none of the authority. And this is very true in most instances where a step parent comes in to take care of these children. The mother has a natural reluctance to allow this strange man to discipline her children the way she would allow, for example, the father of the children to do so. She has a natural reluctance. Why? Because whether we like it or not, no matter what fairy tales we spin and tell ourselves, blood is thicker than water. Oh, it's going to be like my kids. BS. No, it's not going to be like your kids. They are not your children. They are another man's children. And for you to come in and to discipline them in the way that they may need is very difficult and a tall order. I'll give you another story. I had a friend, again, talking to another brother. He went through a bad divorce with his wife. And he said to me, bro, I heard that my wife is looking to get married again and all the rest of it. And I even know the brother. I said, okay, so, what do you want to do? He said, if that man lays one finger on the hair of my child's head, I will finish him. I will finish him. Those were his words. I quote you verbatim. What does this do now? This puts the new man who comes into the picture in a predicament, which is if he sees the child starting to act out and the mother is not disciplining him, which typically mothers have a tougher time disciplining children than fathers do, just the way it goes. Dads tend to be the disciplinarians. But his hands are tied and he can't discipline the child. And by discipline, I mean exert his authority. Doesn't necessarily have to be physical. I'm saying exert his authority, raise his voice, take away something away from the child, and so on and so on. If he can't do that, that child is going to grow up rotten, spoiled. And I mentioned this to the brother as well. I said, Akhi, look, I understand the feelings that you are feeling right now, but if you implement this with your ex-wife, and you say, and you make that clear to her, and you even, God forbid, go and do something stupid to this guy if he tries to, discipline your child, you are going to raise a rotten, spoiled, rotten child. He's going to be raised spoiled, rotten. Anyway, I can't change the feelings of what men feel. It's that innate protector instinct that he has towards his child. He doesn't want next man disciplining his child, and I get it, I understand it. I understand it as a father myself. I'm not saying it's right, I'm not moralizing, it just is. And that's something you must bear in mind as a man looking to come in and take on the children of another man, to take on the responsibility of another man, to take on the children of another man, period. Authority. You are going to have authority problems in most instances. In most instances. Now, that's not to mention the respect the child may lack for you. So let's say you enter this circumstance and you have the rare privilege of being able to discipline them. The ex-husband says, "Yep, you do what you got to do," and the mother gives you full reign. But now you still have the children to contend with. And this is especially true if you are coming into a situation where you're marrying a sister who has older sons. And by older, I mean 10 plus or getting towards the age of puberty. Why? Because sons are naturally very protective and have the ghira over their mothers. Sons don't want to see their mothers with anyone except their father. Facts. If you're a man, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Try and imagine your mom if she's still with your father. Try and imagine her with another man. What type of feeling does that bring up inside you? I'm sure it's not a very pleasant one. This is a reality. And sons of that age have that innate protector instinct towards their mother. They don't want to hear any man giving a sideward glance or a bad word to his mum. He will only tolerate that from his father, nobody else. Nobody else. Meaning what? If you get into a disagreement with your wife one day, that boy hears it, that another man's child hears that, he could get involved. He could create a fight. He could get up all in your face. I have heard this firsthand of a young man who's in his mid-teens, and he picked a fight with his mother's new husband because of something that the husband said. Said a sideways things. He was maybe disrespecting his mother. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe it was just a simple disagreement. The boy couldn't tolerate it one bit and immediately got involved. Had no respect for the man whatsoever. Why? Because it just is. That's a reality. And now you as a man coming in, you only have so many tools you can use to discipline this. It's not even a child. Mid-teens, that's not a child anymore. If that child doesn't have respect for you, what can you do? You don't have the same power, authority, control as you would with your own child. This is a reality. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it is. So bear it in mind. Authority. What else? Okay. If you read Dr. Warren Farrell's book, The Boy Crisis, single mothers in comparison to single fathers. Nuclear homes, which is where mum and dad together, children do the best. There's no doubt about this. Men and women are better together than they are apart. You've probably heard this term many times before as well. We are better together than we are apart. A man and a woman together raise better, more wholesome children than in a single mother home or a single father home. However, if you were to compare side by side single mother homes with single father homes, single mother homes do worse on every single metric. And this is not a slight to you single mums out there. I am just relaying the message. 61% of all youth toppings, of all youth self-deletions, using my words carefully because this is YouTube, come from single mother homes. One single pool, one single demographic, single mother homes. If you consider all the different types of home setups we have, from 60% come from one single demographic, single mother homes. 70% of all high school dropouts come from single mother homes. 91% of all homeless and runaway children come from single mother homes. You can find these stats, the Center for Disease Control. Now, these are American stats, admittedly, but I can imagine it would not be that much different here in the UK when you consider we live in a global village. We live in a global village. And if you're American, then this applies to you. Children raised in single mother homes tend to be less empathetic and understanding than children raised in single father homes. Why? It's very interesting once you hear the explanation. And everything I'm giving you, by the way, is from Dr. Warren Farrell's book. Mothers tend to be more lenient towards their children. They have a harder time disciplining their child. And so they allow the child to get away with it. Because of her empathy towards the child, she tends to give the child a longer leash and allows him to get away with more. She doesn't have that ability to, put her foot down as much as a man does. But what does that do? When you, as a parent, are constantly thinking about the child and how the child feels, you create a child that constantly worries and concerns him or herself with how he feels. And I'm quoting almost verbatim from Dr. Warren Farrell's book. Parents who are, particularly in this case, it tends to be moms, but parents in general who are overly empathetic, and it's not empathy, by the way, it's cowardice. If you don't have the balls to discipline your child, you're not empathetic, you're a coward. Regardless, parents who are overly empathetic, to quote Dr. Warren Farrell's wording, towards the child, create children who are also overly empathetic towards themselves. We have a word for that. It's called narcissists. You could say, it's not a stretch, that single mothers have a proclivity, an increased proclivity to raise narcissistic children. Again, I'm not taking a shot at all single moms, and I'm sure there are beautiful exceptions to the rule. Shout out to those exceptions to the rule. We can't paint them all with one brush. I am just saying, on a bounce of probabilities, not possibilities, this is going to be the end result of children being raised in single mother homes. Now, children raised in an environment where there is the presence of a step parent. Do you know what the number one reason for children experiencing some type of grape? Take away the G and you know what I'm talking about. I'm censoring my words for YouTube. Children who experience grape. The number one factor for children experiencing that is, guess what? The presence of a step parent. Now, this is a warning to the single mums out there. Before you decide to bring a strange man into your home to live with your daughter, to live with your son if he's really that bad, before you decide to do that, you must ask yourself, how much do I know about this man? Can I really trust him? How can you know? Children raised with a step parent are 100 times more likely to be graped than children not raised in this environment. The increase in likelihood for a child to experience grape goes up 100-fold with the presence of a step parent. 100-fold. It's the number one factor or reason why children go through that heinous experience. The presence of a step parent. And Dr. Warren Farrell didn't say stepfather, he said step parent, which means it can swing both ways. It can go both ways. A step mom can come in and do the nasty as well. We would assume that this is more likely for men to do this, but it swings both ways. Bottom line, and a warning to the sisters, be careful which strange man you choose to bring in your home. And honestly, if you want my advice, and this will also increase your chances of getting married again, give the kids back to the father. Not only will he do a better job of raising them, for the reasons I've already mentioned, children raised in single father homes do better than single mother homes, but you can at least rest easy knowing, okay, my kids are 100 times more likely to go through that experience. At least I don't have to worry about that now that the kids are back with their father and I brought this new man home. And start a new family. Is it ideal? No, I'm sure it's very heartbreaking even for you to think about that, but you cannot have your cake and eat it. And I'm firm on this. Let me tell you why. Because 70 to 80% of all divorces are initiated by women in the West, that is. I spoke to Coach Kareem the other day, who lives in Jordan. He said to me, 89% of divorces are initiated by the woman in the Arab world. I cannot verify this, I'm quoting him. One thing I can tell you is that Brother Gabriel in one of his other podcasts has mentioned, he spoke to one of the shuyukh in the Arab world, and that sheikh said to him, the women here are seeking khul like they're changing their slippers. What does that tell you? The majority, not minority, the majority are seeking divorce for frivolous reasons. Frivolous, and I know women have a natural inclination and proclivity towards ingratitude, but my point is this, there must be consequences for that. And one of the consequences is you cannot expect to get married again as easily, just like that, without there having to be a price to pay. A price to pay. And one of those prices that you must consider paying is sending the children to live back with their father. It's in their best interest anyway. And there's so many reasons here. And this is why I'm so against when brothers say it's sunnah to marry divorcees. Be careful. Be careful when you do that, because you are empowering, encouraging sisters who are in marriages and are dissatisfied for no major reason. He's not an oppressor. He's not an abuser. Less than 1 in 5 women ever experience domestic violence. Don't tell me they're domestically abused. This is nonsense. The vast majority leave their marriages for irreconcilable differences, also known as yakfurna al-ashir, ingratitude, ungrateful. But they only realize that when it's too late. You know what, I had a good thing going. Hence why the sister from the beginning of the video that I mentioned to you wanted her husband back no less than 3 times. It's too late after that though. You've got the divorce, khalas, he's moved on. It's unlikely you'll be able to get him back, nor do I recommend him to either. Nor do I recommend him to, because those issues you had before will undoubtedly resurface. Anyway, without digressing too much, I'm throwing a lot at you right now, but we have to talk about this. Accusations. Once again, purely anecdotal, but I know of this brother personally. I told you, I speak to these brothers every day. He went through a torrid experience. He was living in a household with his wife, and his wife had children from a previous marriage. The daughter, once she hit her mid-teens, just before her mid-teens, she made an accusation against him. She said, that man graped me. Take away the G, you understand the word. That man graped me. What are you going to do, mum? The police got involved, everyone got involved. 2 years later, it turns out after this man's life had been turned upside down on its head, that she was lying and she was attention seeking, and that he had done no such thing whatsoever. He had done no such thing. But for whatever reason, perhaps the girl didn't like him, perhaps I don't know, this could be a million reasons. We don't even know what the reason is, but that girl decided to turn this man's life upside down, and he had to pay the price, the consequences of that for 2 years. For 2 years, he had to put up with that, until alhamdulillah, he was found guilty after she came out and said, you know what, I'm sorry guys, I was lying. Bear that in mind, gentlemen, before you put yourself in a situation like this. Be careful. No, you're not her father. Stop telling yourself these romantic lies as a fantasy. Blood is thicker than water in this instance. Okay, I understand you're her mahram. You're still not her father. And she will never view you as her father. And you will never view her completely as your daughter either. It's a different feeling. It's a different feeling. Let's carry on. Right. Where are we? Okay, we've done jealous and possessive sons. Right, and finally, on the topic of children. They have no obligation of loyalty towards you. There is no obligation of loyalty towards you. There's no tie of kinship. That's not your blood relative. It's not the sullat al-raham. It's not the tie of kinship, which means what? They could grow up and say, cheers, thanks for everything, and off they go into the sunset, and never have to talk to you ever again. I mean, there's no tie of kinship there. Let me tell you something. It's an extremely heartbreaking experience when you have established a relationship with a child from another father. You have a relationship there, father, son, or daughter relationship, and then for whatever reason, you are no longer able to speak to them, or they are no longer able to speak to you, or they don't want to speak to you. Whichever way around it could be, it's a heartbreaking experience to go through that. Heartbreaking experience. Another brother who went through a situation. He married a sister. She had 3 sons. They were all in their teens. But somehow he kindled a very good relationship with these children. The mother, it turned out, she had a motor mouth. She would frequently swear at this brother, constantly disrespect him and swear him. A few months down the line, literally 6 months down the line, he decided, I cannot tolerate this anymore. This woman has no respect for me. He decided to leave. One of the children, who was maybe 14, 15 at the time, messaged him and said, please don't leave us. You are the father I never had. SubhanAllah. You were the father I never had. That child took him on, that man, as his father, and then it was ripped away from him. This is a heartbreaking experience. When you are bringing a strange man into your life, sisters, this is the risk you run. Attachments form and then attachments break. And that serves to mold the child in how they go about their future relationships. And this can perpetuate generationally. It can perpetuate generationally. Once again, comes back down to what my major objective is. Preserve the nuclear home. Find a way, stick it out, make it work. Women today are more liberated than ever, have more rights, more freedoms, more everything, and you are more miserable than ever. Your divorce rates are higher than ever. You are the unhappiest generation of the lot. 1 in 3 of you are on some type of psych medication. The unhappiest women that we have ever had. The irony, the absolute irony. Okay, now we move on to another point, which is if you get with a sister who has been married before, maybe she's been married a few times before. If you, and this connects to point number 1, the imprint. If you don't meet up to her expectation that she has of you, and you have children with her, regardless of whether you have children or not, because you're not meeting that expectation, she is going to have that feeling inside of her that she could do better, that she has settled for you. Now what's happening again? Once again, breaking the family home, breaking the nuclear home. You're going to have a kid or 2, and then she's going to want to get divorced. She's want to get her khul from you. And why do I keep saying she will want to get her khul from you and not the other way around? Because in the West, 70 to 80% of all divorces are indeed initiated by the women. Do men divorce women? Yes. Are there abusive men who don't fulfill the rights of women? Yes, of course. I'm not denying that. But on a balance of probabilities, it is the woman who will leave him, not the other way around. It is her who will leave him. And like I said, in the Arab world, that likelihood, that percentage is even higher. Is even higher. So now you're going to have children with this woman. And then what? We're back to square one again. Kids being raised in broken homes. That is my problem. That is my number 1 problem. Not single moms, not stepchildren. No, the main problem I have is children being raised in broken homes. As a man who was raised in a nuclear home myself, alhamdulillah, and I thank my parents, they've been married nearly 40 years, Allahumma barak. I can truly appreciate the advantages that I have on the majority of my peers. The majority of my peers who are not raised in nuclear homes, I can see it. And the older I get, the more I can see it, the more prevalent it becomes to me. SubhanAllah, man. SubhanAllah, these guys have got work to do. They've got a lot of work to do. They're on the back foot. Now, is that irreversible? No, it's not irreversible. But they have more work to do than a child who was raised in a nuclear home. More work to do. And this puts them at a disadvantage. So bear that in mind. You have children with this woman, she might leave. Not to mention that her marital happiness, a woman's marital happiness, declines as she goes from one marriage to the next. Her ability to be content, happy, declines. While simultaneously, her demands from the man go up. Why? A woman, when she has a bad experience in marriage, she says to herself, right, never again will I accept that. Never again will I marry for that. Then the next man who comes along, he's going to have to bring this, that, and the third. Now let's talk about this from a purely economic point of view. Let's talk about the economics of this. From an economic point of view, marrying a woman who has never been married before and doesn't have children, and marrying a woman who has been married before once, twice, thrice, and has 1, 2, or 3 children. The end result, which is marriage, is the same. You have a wife, you have a wife. But economically speaking, marrying the one who has never been married before and has no children will be cheaper to provide for than the one who has been married before and has children from a previous marriage. Which means what? You, as a man, must pay more for the one who's been married before and has children, which is a less desirable prospect to a man, than the one who has never been married before and has no bad experiences intimate experiences with a man to speak of and has no children, no baggage, and baggage it is. It is his baggage. It might not be baggage to you, sister, but it's baggage to him. It's baggage to him. So he has to pay more for less. That doesn't make no economic sense. That's an economically bad decision. It's a bad choice. Now I can already hear the brothers and sisters screaming at the back, but what we're going to do with our divorcee sisters, I'm coming. One solution I've heard the brothers talk about is the men who are able to take on multiple wives, they should take on these divorcee sisters. Let's talk about that. By capable, man istata' minkum. Those of you who are capable, let's talk about that. It's financially, emotionally, psychologically, physically, so on and so on and so on. So now we're talking about a man who is above average. We're not talking about your average Abdullah. We're talking about an above average brother. If the average salary in the UK is £27,500 a year, and that's how much it takes to provide for a household, then you're going to be scraping the barrel at 27,500 grand a year. But it stands to reason, if you want to take on another wife, you're going to have to bring double that, which is nearly 60 grand a year. Third wife, 90 grand. Fourth wife, 120 grand. And in all of those households, you'll still be scraping the barrel. At 120 grand a year, you'll still be scraping the barrel, especially after tax. But let's just go along with this. So now, you as a man, you have worked to become above average in terms of your financial power and capability, emotional, mental, psychological, physical health. You are above average. You're not the average man at all. You're not the average man. An above average man, it would stand to reason, deserves above average outcomes. If we go with this notion that the above average man should take on the sloppy seconds, and I know that's triggering to a lot of you, but that's exactly what it is, or thirds, or fourths, or fifths, if she's been married twice, thrice, 4 times, 5 times. Above average has to take on a below average prospect. It is more desirable to him, his natural inclination, his natural desire is a woman who has been untouched. But now we are telling the above average man that he needs to take on the burden of responsibility for a below average woman in terms of desirability. And don't confuse, when I say average, don't confuse that with personal worth. What her personal worth is in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't conflate the two. I'm simply saying, on paper, he has a natural inclination towards the one who has never been married before, a greater inclination towards her than the one who has been married before. So we are telling this brother who has had to work tooth and nail to become above average, perhaps exceptional. Perhaps he's not even top 10%. He's top 5, top 1, top 0.1%. But then we're telling him his reward is sisters who have been with other men and raising the children of another man. Does that make sense to you? Okay. Let's leave him to the side now. Let's talk about the women, the sisters. We have an above average brother, mashallah, top 1%, able to take care of 4 wives with ease, no problem. Who from the women is more deserving? From the women is more deserving of this exceptional brother. And we're going to use 2 examples. The sister who has been married before, once, twice, thrice, or the sister who has never been married before. Who from those 2 ladies, those 2 women, those 2 groups of sisters is more deserving of the exceptional brother? The one who's had a chance, the one who's had a turn, the one who's had a go, or the one who's never had a go? The one who's never had a chance, the one who's never experienced a man. Who is more deserving from the sisters? Never mind the brother. Who do you think? The one who's had a go, or 2 goes, or 3, or 4, or 5, or the one who's never had a go before? I will tell you, the one who's more deserving from those 2 groups of sisters is the one who's never been married before. The one who has never had an experience. She is more deserving than the one who has had a go twice, thrice, 3, 4, 5 times. And that's never mind what he wants, what his desires are. We've already touched upon that. We've already spoken about that. Now I can hear the response will be, but Mahdi, there will always be a demand for women who have never been married before. Whereas the women who have been married before and have 2, 3, or 4 children, they are less in demand. They find it harder to get married. So what do we do with them? I have your solution, Habibi, don't worry. Those sisters are below average in desirability. And I'm not including their personal worth. I'm just saying on paper, a woman with 2, 3, 4 kids and 2, 3, 4 ex-husbands, her desirability is below average. It's below average. What do we do with below average? The solution for them is below average brothers. Or an average brother for that matter. And let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. There's an ocean of good brothers, not average brothers, not below average brothers, good, solid brothers. He's not rich. He doesn't earn a lot of money, but he's a good man. And he will happily take her on, wallahi. I would even recommend him to. He will still do it. You know why? Because every other woman is turning him away. All women, Muslim or not, want the same type of man. They want the superstars of this world. Women will rather die alone than marry a man that she feels in her mind she's settling for. By 2030, Morgan Stanley have released a report. They predict by 2030, 45% of all women of prime working age between the ages of 25 to 44 will be single and childless. Single and childless. That's nearly half the population. Nearly half the population of women will choose not to marry because they don't want to settle. And that means what? It means naturally half the population of men will also not be married. And those men desperately want a solution to their problem. They want to be married. That's the solution for these sisters. Not the exceptional brother. No, that exceptional brother, he deserves the exceptional from the women. And those exceptional women, the ones who are the top pick, the top priorities, also deserve him. That's aligned together. As for the sisters who have had a go on the ride, they've been 2, 3, 4, 5 times, they've got 2, 3, 4, 5 kids, well, we have a solution for them as well. And to those sisters, I say to you, you are not settling. You don't qualify in the first place. Remember that. If you like this video, hit the like, hit the subscribe, share this with a brother before he decides to marry that sister who has children. If he decides he still wants to do it after that, fine, more power to him. I'm just passing on a message. And if you enjoyed this video, then check out the 2 videos here, right here. One of them is a debate I had with Brother Isa on the same discussion. And another one is a reaction video that I had to one of Brother Gabriel's videos on marrying divorcee sisters.